Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack. Back again to talk about Holy Priest Tier 21 set bonuses, where we're at right now, and where I think that we should be going into Antorus, alright? So it's about 2 months or a month and a half or something like that until Antorus is going to be everything official, but just judging from their usual timing and stuff like that, it's probably going to be after BlizzCon, just historically speaking, right? So what we have here, and of course, refresher if you're not sure about the Tier 21s, Holy Priest Tier 21 2-piece. 2-piece is basically whenever you cast Prayer of Healing, you gain, they just buffed it, it's now a 60% buff to your next Flash Heal, or Binding Heal. Alright, one of those three will get a 60% buff. So whenever you cast Prayer of Healing, you will buff one of those other abilities by 60%. That was just recently buffed. Now, the 4-piece is the exact opposite. It's whenever you cast Flash Heal, or Binding Heal, you will buff your next Prayer of Healing by only 30%, okay? So, what I kind of want to talk about here is the concern that many Holy Priests are having, and how we can make this better, right? So, a couple principles, general, thought process of historically what has Blizzard been doing. For one, they want to make their 4 pieces valuable. Yes, I agree. Makes sense. You complete your set bonus, you get a really nice big effect. An issue that comes with that, though, is if the effects of the 4-piece are too powerful, then it's very difficult going forward to make an even better set bonus there, and then you have power creep issues. We see this has already happened with Rested Druids with Tier 19 set bonuses, right? So that is a problem for them where they were using, and many of them still are, I believe they're using Tier 19 4-piece from Nighthold in Tomb of Sargeras, right? So that's something that they do not want to be doing. And we've seen many times in the past that Blizzard has nerfed the old 2 or 4 sets in order to push people to use the new gear, which makes sense, which is logical, because again, you want to make sure that they're using new content. You want to make sure that people do not feel obligated to run old content in order to be viable. If I want to make an Arrested Druid alt, and I didn't have old 4-piece, then I'd feel disadvantaged if I wanted to do like mythics with my buddies or something like that, because the Rested Druid that does have it has an advantage over me, right? So that's a problem. Now, this is the slow-moving train for the Holy Priest. We see this coming. We, are in a position to avoid it, and this is what the video I want, be able to talk about here, is we have an opportunity now to avoid this section. So I have a couple notes of just where the Holy 4-piece is right now, the 2 and 4-piece, right? So, an issue of the overall design is that I'm not a huge fan of the type of bonus. It does reflect a very old serendipity back from Warlords of Draenor and previously, where you cast like a Flash Heal or Heal, and it would give you a serendipity stack, making your Prayer of Healing cast faster and cost less, right? It reminisces to that point, which is all well and good, except for the fact that the opposite effect, using Prayer of Healing, giving a buff to Flash Heal, Binding Heal, is not really something you are using. And I guess the best way to put this is, you're not using Prayer of Healing to buff your Flash Heal or Heal. That's not going to happen. Prayer of Healing costs too much, it's too expensive, and basically you are just going to, and this is not about control, this is not about focus, this is not about planning anything with a 2-piece. It's just, oh, whenever you cast Prayer of Healing, you get this buff, whatever, cool. Now the 4-piece is intuitive, it is an actual controllable buff. Before big damage happens, you'll want to cast a heal, get that charge up, you'll actually precast a Prayer of Healing. As damage hits, Prayer of Healing will hit just after that, then you'll drop Sanctify, and then you'll kind of look at what the damage is going out. If you look at like the damage from Gul'dan, there's a lot of pulsing constant damage over a 5-6 second window. That's going to mean that you're going to keep on spamming Prayer of Healings. I do not think that you would see some kind of cast Flash Heal, then cast Prayer of Healing, then cast Flash Heal, then cast Prayer of Healing. I don't think that's something that you're legitimately going to be seeing on most encounters. Now, the issue here is that in order to get to the intuitive and more interesting bonus, you have to go and get 2 and 4 set. And the issue that comes with this is that, of course, Holy Priest Tier 20, which makes your Holy Word cycle so much quicker by giving the 50% reduced cooldown 40% of the time, makes it so that it's a lot harder to justify being able to take new content bonuses when the old bonuses are so powerful, right? So the question comes, again, this is a slow-moving train, we see this coming, how can we fix this? So some of the intended goals that we should have is Holy Priest should want new contents 4-piece, right? Old contents 2-piece should be an option, but not a requirement, right? You don't want to, again, make people feel bad to run old content. You know, say, oh, you know, my buddies are running an alt run. I could get this, that could be an upgrade. But if I don't get it, I'm not going to feel bad about it, right? And that's basically where Holy Priest Tier 20 is, where you're or Tier 20 2-piece is, where you're getting, oh yeah, a little extra benefit to your serendipity, and it does increase the cycle of your holy words, and it's a good benefit, but it's not a requirement, right? And that's a good place to be in. So how we would achieve this best, in order to make sure that we want new Tier 21 4-piece, and to make sure that we don't feel bad, and make, you know, keep that 2-piece option really an option in Tier 20. So suggestions here. Basically, you have to nerf Tier 24 piece. That's the unpopular opinion because we love our Tier 24 piece. We love having a high cycle of holy words. It feels good. But there's no other way for us to do this cleanly, from what I've seen. And if you guys, you know, have better ideas, definitely let me know. But we have to be reasonable about this, you know. It does us no good if we're going to just suggest to people, oh, let's just make the Holy Priest the best shit ever. Like, it's stupid, right? So it would have to start with nerfing Tier 24 piece. At its base level, this is the best set bonus we've had in a very long time, which is great, but unfortunately, we're not being offered something even higher in that scale, because guess what? It's really difficult to do, to keep on making better bonuses, right? So they're not going to remake the entire set bonuses at this point. That's unrealistic. So what we have to do is nerf old Tier 20's 4-piece, right? That has to happen. From there, you will, of course, want to buff Tier 21, 2, and 4-piece. And what we have is the 2-piece is not especially intuitive, so you're not planning to stack up any of the buffs. You're not, you know, really prepping things in advance. It's just a nice benefit. So I think the buff that they just put in, where Prayer of Healing buffs one of those 3 single target abilities by 60% instead of 30%, is a good change. I think that's where it should be. And I don't think that you should have any stacks to it. But I do think the 4-piece needs to have stacks, and I think that is something that fills a gap in Holy Priest gameplay right now, is burst healing. Is that, yeah, you have your Sanctify, but you don't really have much after that. If you're in a position where, you know, again, this is spitball numbers, you know, the Balance team will have to focus on what this was if they take this seriously, but if we're stacking up to 100%, let's say for an example, 4 stacks, 100%, you know, if you're topping a couple of people off, spot damage here, let me just cast heal as filler before the big damage happens, and now you have this really chunky Prayer of Healing, the precast before the damage happens, land it, hit Sanctify immediately after. Now you have this very, very big burst that otherwise Holy Priest does not have. And it requires setup, it requires practice, and it requires knowledge of damage. And that's what you want to have as a set bonus that is going to put forth intuitive gameplay, right? That's what you want to have, because it will reward people who prepare, and it will not reward people who don't prepare. Simple as that. Again, exact numbers may vary, but something around 3, you know, stacking up to 3 or 4 times for a larger amount is, in my view, a lot more beneficial, and it does result in more intuitive gameplay for the Holy Priest, while also filling in, you know, a potential, I wouldn't say weakness, but it's not something that they're very strong at for instantly reversing damage, right? They're very, very strong at like consistent damage with your mastery and, you know, having, you know, constant cast of Prayer of Healing, but a big burst is not necessarily a Holy Priest. From there, you have to look at how effective those new bonuses are. That'll take internal testing, that'll take time. I'd love to be in a position where that could be, you know, tried for a weekend or 2 for Mythic PTR testing, you know, but the next steps is also looking at buffing baseline Holy Priest spells or talents. We've seen, you know, what is the net effect of having Holy Priest Tier 24 piece, right? That's having higher divinity uptime because you use more holy words. Well, one way to achieve at least part of that is to bring back and reverse the old divinity nerf, which went and made divinity's buff uptime go from 8 seconds to 6 seconds. So if they brought it back up to 8 seconds, that would further improve divinity uptime, and it would be at a similar level to what it is right now, but nerf divinity, but regular Tier 24 piece. If they brought back the buff to divinity and then they nerfed the 4 piece, then you might be able to achieve a level of parity there that would actually be pretty beneficial. But again, this is something that they really have to watch very closely because they're very worried about healer tuning right now. And from healer tuning that we've seen, they really don't want to rock the boat too much. So this is something to watch very closely. Other options, I mean, you could always buff, prayer of healing, you could buff baseline mastery, you could buff holy words, you could buff all kinds of other little abilities here and there. And those are all, and this section is really all dependent on how valuable they see, and that we as players, again, that would be the goal, is we would be able to have the tier 21 adjustments go in, where you keep the 2-piece the way it is, and then the 4-piece would have some kind of stacking effect that you better be able to prepare for the damage. And that would be, again, the ideal, that you're able to have greater control over this and have a slightly better baseline in terms of stats, in terms of your ability to hit for a little bit more. That way you're able to counteract the incredibly amazing effect that tier 24 piece has given us. So these are some of my thoughts on what I'd like to see. And again, this is going to be completing the goal of making Holy Priest want new 4-piece, making sure that they do not want, making sure they want new 4-piece, making sure they do not want old 4-piece, allowing old 2-piece to be an option, but not a requirement. That way, again, nobody has to run old content in order to feel like they're going to be functional, in order to feel like they're not going to be a burden there, right? You want new content to be the focus, and if people are going to be running parts of your old content abilities and stuff like that, or gear or a trinket or something like that, then that's probably okay, and that's inevitable, right? But we really don't want to be in a position right now, if nothing changes, we will be using Holy Priest tier 24 piece for a very long time, for quite a while, probably until we're getting Mythic and Antorus gear. And I don't want to be in that position. I don't think many of you want to be in that position, wearing old gear, having lower item level than everyone else, and it just feels weird. It feels weird, and it feels wrong. So these are my thoughts. If you guys have any additional suggestions that you would like to have that may make our situation a little bit better. Again, the sky is not falling by any means, but this is something that's a slow-moving train that we can get out of the way of, that we can redirect to be a positive for us and be a positive for Holy Priest gameplay going forward. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Hope you all enjoyed it. Be sure to share it around and get more of the conversation going, get more of the conversation sparked. All right, have a good one, and I'll catch you all next time.